I like to start my interviews off with a little bit of a softball. What was your first job in the movie and TV industry?
Well, that's a great question. Um, I was an actor, so I don't think that counts. I think you're asking as a writer director, right?
Yes, sir.
Um, after failing to be able to support my family for the first 10 or 15 years of my career as an actor, I decided to either quit the business or learn something new. So I began studying up and trying to understand what a playwright does, what a screenwriter does. And I did a lot of researching and a lot of reading and a lot of experimenting for about 5 or 10 years. I had my first big play produced in New York in 1988, which led to a producer at Warner Brothers seeing the play produced and hiring me to write my first screenplay. And then I had a couple of little jobs here and there where I was living in New York and I would have to go out to Los Angeles to write a screenplay for $1,200, for work for a year and a half. And I had a couple of those. And then in 1995, which was my 26th year in the business, I got my first job as a writer producer in television on a show called Easy Streets. And thankfully, since that time, which is almost 30 years ago now, I've been lucky enough to never stop working and be able to support my family, writing and directing, producing.
You wrote and directed the upcoming film Lamborghini, The Man Behind the Legend. What about this story made you want to write and direct it?
Well, first of all, the project was brought to me by Andrea Lebolino and Lady Monica Bacardi and asked me if I was interested in maybe doing this movie. And of course, I thought, oh, this is interesting. Do a movie in Italy about Lamborghini. Who doesn't want to do that? So I said yes. We made the deal. They brought me out to Italy. I spent about 6 months researching, not just in Italy, back and forth. I met with the family. I met with friends. I met with car people who had worked with them. And I thought during the course of the researching, there was a story here really worthwhile. And it wasn't necessarily what other people thought it might be. I began to understand that Lamborghini truly was a genius. Maybe one definition of a genius is somebody who sees something other people don't see. And what Lamborghini saw after coming home from the war, as he was a prisoner of war, he saw that not only the world, but Italy was changing. Italy was no longer going to be an agricultural country. It was turning into an industrial country. And he wanted to get at the top of that. He wanted to jump on the bandwagon and then be at the forefront. And so he had to tell his father, who had always dreamed that Ferruccio would take over the farm, that it wasn't going to be for him, which is heartbreaking for a father to hear. He doesn't want the life that he'd always dreamed he'd want. And then it began to dawn on me that, oh my God, this is a movie about not just somebody who sees things differently than others, somebody who might be termed a genius, but it's also a movie about what's the price that one pays for that, which ultimately became the engine of the movie.
Of course, the heart of the story, Frank Grillo plays Mr. Lamborghini. I do know that he came in a little bit late into the project, but what about him once you kind of realized you had to recast there and made him your guy?
Well, listen, we shut down like other movies for more than 2 years because of COVID. And then actor schedules, etc. We shot the first half of the movie and then shut down because of COVID and then come back. And we had lost the actor who was playing the role because of those scheduling issues. And there were lots of actors that were considered, lots of actors that the producers brought to me, none of which I felt could do the movie. Frank had auditioned for me for my first television show that I directed, created, called Falcone. And he remembered me and I remembered him from all those years ago because we'd always wanted to work together again. And he then went on to become this wonderful big action star. And I was doing what I was doing. And when they brought Frank's name up, I immediately said, yes, we should do that, because I knew he was a good actor. I knew he was Italian, which I really wanted. A lot of those other actors that were brought to me were not Italian, even though the first actor was not Italian, he was Spanish. And there was a certain element that I could buy. But after that, I just couldn't buy somebody not Italian playing that role. And so Frank, when he came up, everything was right. Even though people didn't see him as a as a character actor, somebody who could take on a character like this. They saw him as an action star. I knew him well enough to know that, yeah, he can do this. And boy, did he played. He was wonderful, wasn't he? He showed up.
He's fantastic. And personally, it's probably my favorite performance of his acting wise. Like it's truly, he transforms into the role and really brings the story to life in that. And it's fantastic in it.
Amazing. You know, he called me up. He was still in New York, or where he might have been shooting a movie. And he said, let's have a talk. What the hell are we going to do here? So we had a quick chat, and he showed up ready to go. He showed up knowing more about the movie than anybody else, including me, about the character. And there wasn't one day where he wasn't Ferruccio, where he wasn't in that moment. And I was really proud of the work he did in this, as I was with all the other actors.
For sure. Obviously, the costumes, the set design, the production design, all of that stuff to me really kind of puts you in the mood, especially in that back half of that movie when we're kind of getting the gears grinded here. Are there any obstacles you faced in bringing this era to life?
Every day. Every day. You know, we're not a big Hollywood movie. You know, we're even though the studio is a wonderful, wonderful studio, they don't make $100 million movies like big American studios. So there was always the money issue. There was always the time issue. And there wasn't a moment when my producers didn't support what I wanted, as long as I was working with them to make it happen within the course of a budget that we had. But the real credit goes to the designers, the production designer who never gave up. I mean, there's a scene in a bank. You know the scene in the bank? Remember that? It's not a bank. It's an old hotel that my production designer turned into a bank. I was like, you know, that's the kind of work everybody said, here's what we have to do. You know, and then we had 2 factories in 2 different towns. And somehow my production designer turned that one factory into 2 factories on 2 different sides. And then the cinematographers, of course, were brilliant. You know, every head of the department knew that they were making a movie that they had to make people proud of because it was an Italian. It was an Italian movie about an Italian hero made by Italians. This was special for them. And boy, oh boy, they gave up everything. Some of them, I'm sure, spent their own money to do things. So, you know, all the credit goes to the heads of the department, every crew member who showed up and went to work every day, every actor. Nobody gave less than 100% because if we didn't, this was a movie that wasn't going to work.
Yeah, I agree with that. You got the authentic feel that you were going for, and it was an incredible production design throughout the film. Throughout this journey, what was something that kind of shocked you to learn about Mr. Lamborghini?
Oh, there were many things. I guess the thing that surprised me, I don't know about shocked me, was how successful he was before he made the first Lamborghini car. He made air conditioning units, he made the tractors, and then he made other tractors. He had all kinds of businesses. He was a titan of industry long before a Lamborghini was ever made. And that was the thing that surprised the hell out of me. And I think it'll surprise other people. You know, he just kind of conquered every idea he ever had. And again, you pay a price for that personally, which is what the movie's about. But that surprised me the most. I had thought of him as Lamborghini and nothing else. It surprised me that he was a prisoner of war. It surprised me that all of his ambitions came from watching other young kids his age die. And he thought, if I'm going to die at that age, I'm going to do something before it happens. You know, that's a driving force when someone at the age of 21 or 22, whatever he was, sees death of that kind. You know, so anyway, those are a couple of things that surprised me.
My final question to you is, obviously within the film, we have the car itself, right? And then of course the evolution of the car from where it starts to where it kind of is today and has stayed today. What was it like kind of being inside the cars and getting the cars and seeing that evolution, maybe even more hands-on than prior to, you know, working on the film?
Well, again, I'll go back to my production designers and my car experts, you know, and I grew up in New York City. I was 21 before I had a license, you know, because we didn't need cars in New York City. We didn't need licenses. And so I don't know a whole lot about cars. And so I had to do a lot of research, and I had two great research assistants who tutored me for 6 months. But the biggest thing was watching and seeing the problems that he had. Don't forget, not only did he have to make his first Lamborghini, he decided to do it in a time constraint that everybody said he was out of his mind. Nobody ever believed he could do that. So how he overcome those obstacles and how he would look at a problem, and these great designers, some of the greatest designers in automotive history, he talked into coming aboard. These people were telling, even they were telling him, we can do this, but we can't do it now in this time period. This is insane. And he never gave up. And he just, he said, I understand it's impossible, but how are we going to do it? and when somebody is that sure of a dream, it has a way of infecting other people. And that was beautiful.